Hello, everybody, and welcome to the WhatCulture Horror Podcast, hosted by me, Ash Millman, and joined by he, Josh Brown,
Hello, Ash.
and also by he, Ben Roy Turner.
Hello there.
How are you both doing today?
I'm doing all right. This new Zoom setup is both great and also scaring me because I watched Host recently and I don't trust anything about this platform now. So on the one hand, good, love being able to see everyone. On the other hand, bad. I'm scared there's going to be a demon in the background at some point, especially that little door behind you, Ash. Not a fan.
Honestly, we did that interview with Rob Savage, which is on the channel. Plug. Go and watch Host. Go watch the interview. And now I'm terrified because we did that on Zoom as well. I'm like, ooh, what if he's brought a demonic entity into every call I do? So if that's the case, Josh, you're in on it now as well. Ridiculous new Zoom setup. Ben, this is your idea, wasn't it? A lovely bit of Zoom.
I've been possessed by the Zoom gods, so now I'm just trying to get the demons into everyone's home.
Yeah, well, thanks. Good. Thank you. So to actually give some point to this horrible demonic possessed pod that you're all going to have to listen to and endure and then be possessed by, presumably, as that's how these things go. We're essentially just want to do a 2020 horror roundup, kind of talk about what we've been watching, what has been on, kind of do a best of so far, as well as what's to come and bits of news going around the industry. So it's a very easy, breezy, beautiful cover girl sort of pod. It's just kind of I know it's not the middle of the year, but it is our mid-year one because we started these podcasts a little bit later than January. So it works as a really good midway point before we get to the end of the year and can round everything up. So we're here for the 2020 roundup. Now, I know you guys have been hot on the horror recently because the world is a horror show, so we've just been absorbing as much horror as we can. So I figured let's start and talk about kind of what we've been watching and what kind of builds upon all the good things we saw at the start of the year and where we've got to at this point. Obviously, Host is the biggest one at the moment because it's fantastic, but I'm going to throw it out to you and say, tell me what you've been watching, tell me what's amazing, tell me what people need to be seeing this 2020 year.
Honestly, Ash, I've been watching a load of old crap, a load of old rubbish for the past few months because I've been trying to get back into the horror game after missing a bunch at the start of the year for obvious reasons. So, I went back and watched The Grudge. I went back and watched Jack in the Box, which is not very good. I was never looking forward to that, but ended up watching that. And honestly, Host was I know you guys have talked to death about this, no doubt, with the director already. But that for me was the kind of kick up the backside that I needed to kind of believe in horror again, Ash, because after The Invisible Man started the year off so well, for me afterwards, it was all downhill for a little bit where it was just kind of, I couldn't get into anything and there was nothing really grabbing me. And a lot of the films that I wanted to see either don't have a release date in the UK currently or were pushed away. So even though I've watched quite a lot, Host is the only one that's really kind of stuck out and reinvigorated the old horror juices for me because honestly, stuff like The Grudge, I was stupidly looking forward to that. I think we briefly talked about it. I really enjoyed the director. I really liked the Grudge property. And I thought, you know what? It can't be as bad as people say it is, but it is, and it's not very fun, and it's not very good, and it's not very scary, and I was bitterly disappointed. It's very 2020, isn't it, to be bitterly disappointed by all these movies, but I sadly have. Have you guys had any better luck?
Well, just a side to The Grudge, I think I last watched that on a Blockbuster VHS that my mum had rented for herself. I would just feed off them when she would remember, yes, give me whatever's there. But horror-wise, this year, I'm just going to go out there and pimp underwater because not enough people are talking about Alien, but more
This
wet.
is the pod to do it.
Yes.
The original one we did, where we did our of so far, I was just everybody watch Underwater. I think it's come up so many times. Ben Roy, please tell us all the good things about Underwater because I love hearing about it.
It's basically like a space film but underwater, but there's something more scary about underwater because the crushing pressure of everything coming down on people, and you think, I'm going to get 20, 30 minutes of can't remember anyone's name, so lead character walking around, just she's doing her teeth, sees a little bug, and then little spoilers, it all just goes off straight away, and it's just these people's quest to get from one part of the station to another, and there are some really gnarly sort of watery related pressure deaths. I segue into I don't know if you've ever seen License to Kill, the only 15 rated Bond film where
you said it with such reverence for the franchise, the only one.
And young me was a bit scared of that because at one point they blow someone's head up with pressure, and that's what made it 15. You see his head expand, and then when they do a bit of this in this film, along with the heavy aliens feel, I'm all in. And then when towards the end, I won't spoil the end. I don't know if you ever have on here, but when it gets to a bit more sort of like, so you can see a bit of a turn. Like, oh, this is a bit more interesting, sort of thing.
It comes out of nowhere, like it comes absolutely out of nowhere.
And because every death, because they've all got these super pressure suits on, so if someone dies, and it was like boom, and it's just like it's tense. It's also thriller, and sometimes it's nice and quiet. And you're just waiting. Like when they first see goo, it's like, don't touch the goo. Never touch the goo is the lesson in horror for me, I think.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to make it my life's work, or at least my year's work, to never watch Underwater.
No, have you not seen it yet?
Hang on. And just try to piece it together by things that you guys have said. Because Ash, you always gone about it being so good. Ben Roy, I know you really enjoy it. So I just pick things up in these podcasts. So far, I've got, it's underwater. It's got goo in it. Someone brushes the teeth, pressure head explodes. It's really good. You know what I mean? So I'm building it in my own brain. So I don't ever have to actually watch it myself.
You know what? I'd say that like weird little description would like, it's not worth watching the movie because it's so good and funny, blah, 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 all that crap. No, watch the film. It's a brilliant. And like, you still won't expect what's coming. Even if you do know someone is gooey and brushes their teeth and explodes underwater.
It's tense and fun. And it's also, I think, the second to last film I ever saw in the cinema, the last one being The Invisible Man. So, I mean, I don't want to talk about The Invisible Man because then I'll just be like, I remember when I was in a room with other people sort of thing.
Oh, yeah. No, that's the good thing about that. The last time we're in a room with other people, but the whole scariness of the film is about nobody being in the room. Nice little contrast. I think the most recent one, I believe this was 2020, but honestly, I've lost all track of time, was Fantasy Island. The like Blumhouse remake. It literally might have been last year at this point. I'm pretty sure it's a 2020 horror movie. And it was that was bad. I was trying to think of a nice way to put it. It was I was ready for a little bit of cheap horror. I just watched Countdown recently and was like, yeah, I'm on board with this like PG-13, not very scary, but has all the horror tropes thing. And I was like, I'm gonna watch a bit of Fantasy Island. And it twists itself around so many times and it breaks its own neck. Like it tries too hard. It tries way too hard. But there's some good scenery. Like it's a nice island. The island's pretty fantastical. But yeah, Host is definitely the one that's like just stolen 2020 for me. Absolutely unbeatably unfriended has been top of my list for so long for found footage, and now Host has come along and muscled its way in. But I think that this year has kind of been the year of the streaming platform, obviously, because it's had to be. But so many good things have kind of come out that otherwise might have gone under the radar that have had a lot more push. That are worth celebrating. Like I really enjoyed The Beach House, and have you guys seen that? It was on Shudder, I think.
I'm still yet to get to The Beach House because I've heard mixed things. Actually, I need you to tell me.
It's a mixed movie. It's not like I'm not going to sit here and say it's the best horror movie I've ever seen, but it's like it's a really mixed movie because it begins as one thing and ends as another, and doesn't really tell you what's going on the whole time. And even at the end, you don't really know what's happening. There's a lot of interpretation and open bits and pieces. And it kind of toys with loads of open-ended pieces of like scariness before like spearheading it into one proper thing. And something weird is happening, but not what it is. I'm being as mysterious as this film is here because I'm not really like pinning it down at all. It's literally about people who go to a beach house and have fun at the beach house, and then something strange happens to them at the beach house. But then it becomes bigger than just the beach house. So it's well worth a watch for like a creepy bit of like mystical, cosmic kind of just unsure horror, that special brand of existential crisis that 2020 offers. I feel like the beach house, keeps within its beachy walls.
I do really want that. I feel like you've like touched on something interesting there though. A lot of the horror films that I've watched this year, they've had like moments or ideas or kind of, images that really work, yet they're kind of wrapped up in a full product that doesn't quite do those concepts justice. Like I watched The Shed. I watched The Shed earlier this year, and I'm pretty sure that's a 2020 film. And I was kind of disappointed because I thought it was like a cool idea. It had like a daft title. It's about there's a vampire in the shed. I thought that's my kind of cup of tea. That's my kind of brandy or other assorted drinks. But it didn't come together for me. I thought there was something missing after that kind of central idea, even though there was quite strong performances in it and I quite liked the makeup and effects. It just didn't go that one step kind of further where I wanted it to go, kind of like to blow the concept up. And I feel like with every single horror movie I've watched this year, with the exception of Host and like The Invisible Man and a few others, like they've been great concepts, they've been great ideas, they just haven't gone that extra mile, I suppose. They've just kind of left it at that. And they've made for some, you know, funny enough watching. I've enjoyed it enough watching these movies for the most part, and haven't been kind of like really annoyed by any. There's been few where I've been properly like punching the table out of anger, which is something I do now apparently. When it's not great, it's just kind of that just slightly below disappointing, where you're like, that could have been something special. And I've got
really
something
like
all right.
imagining you just like, oh, this isn't quite what I expected. Bosh, like man of 1,000 tables.
I'm going to segue off the what you don't expect, going back to some two older films. I recently watched Rec 3 and 4. Not what you expect. I don't know. I think I told you about this, Ash, like how they swerve, but I don't know if you know, Josh. But you watching that? Getting into some Rec 3. Okay, what's going on? What's going on? And then they're just like, what? And then 4's just like, what as well? What's going on? Because the two directors or the two creators split off to make a film each. Yeah. And it's do you know anything about them at all, Brown?
I've seen them both. I quite like one of them, but I'll let you finish.
I said, like, the minor spoilers, like when 3 just stops becoming a found footage film, you're just like, excuse me? And then it's more just like some sort of fantasy as the husband goes to rescue his wife dressed in armor and things like that. And then the wife just decides to no and just destroys her waitress, and so he goes around like a badass just killing zombies. It's fun, but I was so confused, and I wish I was told first before I went in there expecting, because 1 and 2 are just such a weird little moment, and then I didn't watch 3 and 4 for years, and coming to that I was just thrown back a bit, not disappointed, but sort of like, hey.
That's interesting though, because I couldn't imagine going into 3 without knowing the concept, without knowing that it was kind of like diverging from the style I made 1 and 2 so good. Because for me, I wasn't certain on that idea, like removing the found footage element and kind of going way more comedic with it as well, and kind of more Evil Dead with it. But having that primed in me, so I had certain expectations going in. I really enjoyed 3, but couldn't get away with 4 because it's kind of felt like Wreck, like 1 and 2, just without the framing device, and it wasn't quite successful, whereas 3 at least brought something else.
At least in 4 they find the found footage and make the found footage film in 4. Like for at one point that some guys on
from a found footage movie really is that the footage is found.
That was the big pop for me that got me into that film a bit more, was them actually finding the footage and putting it together.
I think the 2 films that I probably actively avoided that I know that I should watch, because it's like I like Rec 1 and 2 so much. Like watching them, I don't want to be disappointed. So I'm like, one day I will finish.
I think you'd dig the third one, Ash. I think you would quite enjoy the third.
It's a wedding, isn't it? The third one.
Yeah.
I think you'd quite enjoy it. Also, like, I'm building that zombie list, trying to get to 100 zombie films now, so I'm like 66 or something.
Yeah, it's you that's got me on Resident Evil this year. That's what this year has been for me. It's been all of the Resident Evil movies, and again, avoiding the last one because I know it's going to upset me.
Just finish it, Ash. It's going to upset you, but you've got to finish the pack. Like, I was closely following your letterboxd rankings of the Resident Evil installments, looking forward to them every single night, hoping and praying that Ash Millman would drop a rating for Resident Evil: The Final Chapter, but it never came. Yet another disappointment in 2020.
It will. It'll be here, just not yet. I've got to just let it sit. I'll let the rest of the series just remain for a while.
What I'd advise is have another film or something else to watch ready straight after, just to pull you back out of that slump, which is like, that was a waste of time, wasn't it?
Well, I tell you what is on my radar, actually. Just to bring this a little bit back around to 2020, what is on the radar is the palate cleanser that I know has recently come out and is on my list, very much to watch as soon as possible, is Lovecraft Country. Yeah. That looks amazing. I keep seeing all these pictures and promos of it, and I just love the idea and concept that we're getting proper Lovecraft cosmic tentacle horror. I'm clapping my hands very quietly so I don't peek the microphone. But yeah, I think that looks incredible. And I think talking about existential horror and weird, elevated, mysterious things, I feel like a lot of this year has absolutely dug down into that, following on from the success of Hereditary and The Witch and like It Follows, the period of elevated horror, It Comes at Night, all that sort of thing, where everyone's kind of dug into, people like mystery now, let's give them some mystery. So I think it'll be nice to kind of see how things push back on that with like things that are over-explained or just there for fun or really gory sort of thing as years go on. Like Fantasy Island, I think that tried to have its mystery thing, but then solve it all at the end, which is like kind of a blockbuster issue with horror movies, whereas all the ones that are kind of indie that are getting pushed because, again, theatres have closed down a bit, are just going, let's see if we do it as open-ended as possible. So Josh Brown smashes yet another table.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, Ash, because I have kind of had my fill, I think, for at least a little bit of kind of like that elevated horror approach to kind of horror filmmaking. I feel like, some of my favorites of the past 10 years have been within that subgenre. But at the same time, I feel like, especially now that it's become kind of popular and people are kind of mimicking the style, we're just getting a lot of all right ones. And the thing about elevated horror when it's not amazing is that it's kind of boring and it's kind of frustrating and it's kind of like not what you really want. And if the mystery isn't substantial enough or it isn't interesting enough, then you just come away thinking like, I've maybe wasted my time there, which is why just during this period, especially, I've been looking towards, maybe that's why I've been watching so much schlock that's turned out to be bad, to be fair, because I am looking forward to like just kind of sillier stuff or campier stuff or things that don't take themselves quite as seriously. Like I've got one movie on my radar called Porno, which I'm quite excited about, which is about a bunch of dumb teens or whatever, just a kind of crappy old slasher film throwback. And it's not even supposed to be that good, but it's just something I'm in the mood for. And I realize I've just come on camera and said I'm in the mood for porno on a podcast.
Isn't that the Fangoria one though? Like it is like, yeah. It's something like legit. Like it's what's expected at this point, Josh, honestly. I'm glad that I've actually like heard of it so that I know it's not just the porno.
I've read Porno, so it's fine. Like, don't worry. But I just thought of another horror film that I think it's a horror. Or maybe it's like a slow thriller. Have you two heard of The Assistant?
I don't think I have. No.
So it's more of a realistic horror, more of like a dread thing. It's about someone who's up and young coming, working in the film industry.
Oh yeah.
And her mysterious boss, who isn't Weinstein, but it blatantly is. It's about people working underneath him and the horror of that and not knowing and the like seeing people's shock on their faces. They read emails and stuff and being spoken down to. That's a true. I watched that like just as it came out over here, and that was one where it's like have the idea of knowing that people went through this in real life, but then also to have it sort of be such a sort of like a slow burn. It just like doesn't need to go have say like a boss grab someone in the throat. Go, yeah, no. It's more just sort of like the horror is always off screen.
That's interesting because I'd heard like good things about The Assistant, but I've never heard it described as a horror. But obviously, when you're dealing with that subject matter, you almost kind of inherently tread into those waters of kind of like suspense filmmaking and stuff to reinforce that point, I guess, and reinforce the horror of those kind of situations in like a realistic way. So that's interesting because I've never thought about that film in that context, but I was really kind of more interested. Yeah, like, definitely.
A lot of it is taking place. It's all like dark rooms and stuff like that. It's just, for me, I watching it also in the middle of the night. So just like they're like just feeling uncomfortable for the whole time. So I would say it's at least horror adjacent.
It sounds very like Starry Eyes kind of concepts, where that whole thing's about like the sleazy side of Hollywood and what the pressures of that, being like a woman in that industry as well, and she wants to get ahead and all that sort of thing. It's an interesting topic to unpack, and I think like a thriller, slow burn, suspense version of that is definitely sounds like scary and a horror. Like it is a horror, isn't it? It's a real life nasty horror. But yeah, like again, just gonna like jump on again into a frog leap into another subject, but I think we should kind of talk about what's yet to come this year that we're looking forward to as well. Since we've had things that we've enjoyed, but there's still loads to come, even though lots of it has been like delayed or pushed away or made 2021 instead. Like there's some big names that have gone away, sadly. We still have quite a bit to come out to look forward to, and most recent, the thing that's going to come out first, I think, of all of them, maybe before this podcast goes out, but at the time of recording it isn't out yet, is Peninsula. Now it's been out in South Korea already, and I think its US release date is the 21st of August, which will be tomorrow. And yeah, like all I can say is very excited. I know, Benwoy, this is absolutely your bag. Like,
just watched Soul Station Friday, then watched Train to Busan on Saturday, getting ready for it. Zombie films, my thing, and then when they're good zombie films, this is even better. And when I first watched Train to Busan, I was like years later, after it came out, being blown away by just how effective it was, and then showing it to a friend recently who she wasn't like not into zombie films at all, and then getting into the characters and how well each one of them are defined, even to Mr. Business, who is the biggest dick in the world, and watching it again, not realizing how much of a dick he is. But I'm so interested to see how they follow up that sort of like something about like the Korean zombie film as well. It just scares me a bit more as well. So seeing how that can reflect over to now it's an apocalypse sort of thing rather than just based all on a train, and kind of seeing how the World War Z style of zombie, how they all flow together, done a bit better and actually scary. I'm just really looking forward to it.
I feel like
Josh?
Yeah, you know what? It's a funny one because that was like one of the films I was looking forward to the most this year. But because of everything that's gone on, I've kind of detached from it a little bit because like that and Tenet, I was like looking forward to them so much. And then when it came up that I might not have been able to see them or whatever, I kind of like regressed. I was like, I don't want to get too excited for this thing that I might not be able to see. But I feel like it's almost kind of a no-brainer at this point. I feel like the amount of push that it's had, the success of Train to Busan, the kind of phenomenon that franchise became or whatever. I'm excited to see what they do without the kind of like the core concept, and like Ben Roy says, explore it out to a wider scale, a wider kind of perspective, I suppose, and lose that initial framing for something bigger, and hopefully, you know, if you can get better than Train to Busan, better as well. Like, yeah,
from what I've seen, like of early kind of review stuff, when I was having a little poke around, I don't think it's quite hit the heights of Train to Busan. But like, I don't know, I don't believe anything until I've seen it myself anyway. So I think it's still definitely an exciting one and one to look forward to, and is so close you can taste all the blood and horror that it has to offer. So definitely really excited for Peninsula. But this is basically why I just did this podcast. I'm so excited for the New Mutants to come out for 2020. Like, I'm so excited that it's actually happening, that we're actually getting the New Mutants. I think it's actually going to be really good. Like, I believe in this film. Like, it's had enough times. It's had enough falling over. It's had enough rejigging. It's had enough, you know, not hitting its dreams, its heady, lofty heights of goodness that it could have had, that this is the moment to prove itself. And everybody thinks that it's not going to make it now, and they're going to prove them wrong. X-Men, horror movie, give it to me, feed it to me, 4th of September. Yes, please.
It's not going to make it because it's not real. The New Mutants doesn't exist. The New Mutants is a social experiment devised by Hollywood and other filmmakers to pretend a film is real, but don't actually ever release it. And yes, September the 4th, apparently it's coming out. I'll believe it when I see it, Ash Millman. I will believe it when it's right in front of my face and I'm seeing the New Mutants play out.
I believe it right now. I believe it. It's happening, and it's going to be good. It's based off the Dream Warriors, he said. It's got all the influence of Dream Warriors. It's going to be weird, supernatural reality. It's PG-13, but apparently really pushes the boundaries of PG-13. Everything that is said about this movie just undercuts what it's supposed to be. It's like, oh, it's based on this sequel to A Nightmare on Elm Street, which is a really great sequel, but like, I don't know if anybody could really do A Nightmare on Elm Street the way A Nightmare on Elm Street does. And then, oh, it's a PG-13, but it's a really edgy PG-13. Like, that's also like, oh, great, oh, what's going to happen there? Just everything it says, I'm like, you're trying so hard, and I love you for it. I just love you, and I want you to exist. I want to see you.
Can I just ask a question? Is this the film that they could never get the whole cast in the same room at one point, and they just had to film around that?
You know what? I have no idea.
Because I'm pretty sure that it was also screwed over a lot because certain people were on bigger projects and something like that. So I don't know. I don't believe in that. I'm confident to say I don't believe in it, especially after Phoenix, where I went to see it and I was assaulted in the cinema by one of the last true X-Men film in the Fox era.
The New Mutants will make everything okay with X-Men again. That's what I believe. I firmly believe the New Mutants has everything. I feel like I'm pitching it to you guys. You should watch the new. I haven't seen it, but it's filming it. Film 2020.
You've seen the trailers and you're like, yes, I need this.
I do. It's everything. I loved X-Men growing up. I loved it, and like to combine it with horror, which it very easily could be because of all the themes that it follows and the way that it like leans into these terrifying scenarios. Just give it to me. It's just what I want. Like, I feel like it's combined my childhood with my future, and like it's just everything I need in one lovely horrible ball of probably going to be like, you know, middling to average, but perceived as so much better because of how much hardship it's had. This is the underdog. I believe in New Mutants. I believe in them.
All I need is that. You've already said it. You've already sold me, Ash. Like X-Men crossed with Dream Warriors. Like that's some good stuff. And if you can, if that's how it is, if that's how it plays out, then yeah, I will bow down to Ash for seeing this in advance. But I don't believe it, man. I don't believe it because, like Ben Roy said, there's been too much hardship. Why is it taking so long to come out? What was with all the reshoots? Why? Because there was rumors. I think there was a report that came out when the trailer was revealed, and it kind of like promised this X-Men by way of Dream Warriors horror style movie. But apparently, like the movie itself wasn't like that, so did they have to go and reshoot it to kind of?
Yeah, they had to make it more spooky. Like they were like sold as being an X-Men horror, then we're like, wait, we actually have to make an X-Men horror.
which I hope if they pulled it off. Listen, if they pull it off, great. Then yes, best horror film of the year. But I just feel like it is the underdog. You're right, but maybe for a reason. I don't know.
So much effort. They know they've had so long to do this, but I think that they've done it. But
if we can come out of this and have the last pseudo Fox X-Men film not be a pile of bleep, then I'll be happy. But until it actually is digitally in my eyes,
I know it's I keep saying this, but it's a classic 2020 twist. If the New Mutants comes out and is actually really good, 9 out of 10. Like
this is what I believe in. The curse of 2020 will like make the New Mutants the best film of the year, and like I'm gonna have to tout that. I'm gonna have to tout that as the headline of the year is just New Mutants best horror film of 2020. Like move over, host. But like no, I'm so excited for the New Mutants, and I believe everyone should be too. The amount of work and effort that's gone into it, at this point, it can only be good. That's what it means. Surely, every time a film gets delayed, it just gets better. So
appreciate
the best of them all.
I wish I had the same optimism, Ash. I really wish I did.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's plenty of other films coming out. I'm going to reel them off here and you tell me what you're excited about because we're towards the end of our podcast time. We have a little short podcast. So the ones that are also coming out, we've got The Babysitter Killer Queen that's going to be out on September 10th. We've got Antebellum on the 18th of September. Candyman, Nia DaCosta's movie on October 16th. Hold on, let me get it again.
Hold on.
St. Maud on 23rd of October. Hubie Halloween, the Adam Sandler movie, which is coming out sometime in October. And that's kind of the rundown of what we've definitely got coming out. There's other stuff, the stuff that's had American releases that needs UK releases. There's stuff in between that's a little smaller, but those are the other big kahunas of the horror world at the moment. So there's plenty of good stuff coming. Tell me how you feel about it, guys.
I think Candyman's like the biggest one, but Candyman was something that was not my jam growing up when I was getting into horror and I was watching all the stuff. I didn't really enjoy the first one. I was a bit scared of it, to be honest, but I thought it was, in my dumb ways, I thought it was a bit silly. But recently I went back and watched, on your recommendation, Ash, Horror Noir, a documentary all about...
So
kind of like black culture and, like black actors and black directors in the horror space. And there was this great segment on Candyman, and I think Jordan Peele was talking about it, who's producing the new one. And they were talking about how, Candyman himself, Tony Todd, it's definitely Tony Todd. Yeah. Tony Todd was like, one of the first, if not the first, like mainstream black horror movie villains, and how much that kind of, did for black representation and stuff. So like with that knowledge in mind, now that I've kind of like viewed it in that lens, like I'm even more excited for this reboot, remake or whatever, because I feel like the talent on board is already really kind of interesting, and it's such kind of fertile ground to kind of make a movie that kind of taps into that legacy, and then to see how that is kind of I don't know, kind of like reinterpreted for a 2020 movie, you know what I mean? I feel like that's kind of like fascinating, and I'm really interested to see kind of ultimately the film itself, but also like the wider talking points that come out of it. Like I think that kind of maybe excites me more than anything else, because I love the idea of horror movie villains kind of like being mythologized and canonized in the wider industry, like Freddy, Jason, Michael. And Candyman's place in that is always, to me at least, because I was never really into the franchise, has always kind of been nebulous. So I'm excited to kind of see how that's entrenched and explored and kind of put on screen, I suppose.
Yeah, hammering him home is definitely an excellent point. I think Jordan Peele's work in the horror industry is fantastic, and all the themes he explores surrounding race and all the way that he makes movies so beautiful. I think that'd be really interesting to see him support Nia DaCosta in doing her own vision with this as well, and kind of what comes from their brainchild. There is so much to talk about, like with Candyman as a whole entity, as you say, and then the way that they're going to interpret this. I mean, we've already had the best short film of 2020 in the trailer alone with the shadow puppets and stuff. Like it looks fantastic. Like it's incredible. It's incredible already. When the new Mutants comes out, I don't know what I'm going to say about it, but for the moment, pretty good.
I was dead scared of Candyman, just the idea of the concept of it. And then watching the film, I don't like bees or wasps or anything like that as well. So just even more, like I was legit thought the Candyman was real. Like when after first like seeing it over just somehow I always managed to sneak in and end up watching these horror films and I was too young, sort of thing. So yeah, the Candyman was one of those ones where I'm dead now. I think I've said his name 3 times. So, but. Yeah, this
another haunted Zoom call. Like this is going to happen now. Like summoned Candyman, host thing, and now the Candyman. Who else can we get on here to haunt us forever? But yeah, Candyman was one legit scared of, and would always kind of hold that sort of like, sort of when. So I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, I think that's kind of an excellent point to wrap up on, because Candyman is the one. I feel like that's the big one. As much as I'm really looking forward to Antebellum and St. Maud as well, A24 horror, love the elevated horror movies. Candyman's the one that like has everyone's attention. Is going to be something big and to pay attention to. Is going to leave a big lasting impression, and I'm very excited to see what that is. I know Hubie Halloween, Adam Sandler's Netflix horror movie is coming out as well, but I'm going to have to give it to Candyman to be the most exciting prospect. But yes, so to round this up, we've had our little 2020 talk on what we've enjoyed. We've had a little 2020 talk on what is to come. But what do you guys think about 2020 so far? Tell us your favourite movies, what you're most excited for, what you want to see from WhatCulture Horror in the future as well. Just let us know in the comment section below on YouTube, or send us a tweet on Twitter at WCulture Horror. And you can find us on social media at our various handles as well. So you can find me at Ash Millman. You can find Ben Roy at
Ben Roy Turner.
And you can find Josh at
Josh Brune with 2 O's.
Oh, this spiel has gone far too well, this ending. Like, I feel like I'm going to have to, like, mess it up somehow. Probably by talking about it, like, in this prospect. Anyway, I'm stumbling, going through the words, going through it. Anyway, we're getting to the end of the podcast. Thank you so much for watching. Please come back again soon. We do loads of lovely podcasts all the time. You can find us on Acast, or they'll be on the YouTube channel afterwards. And yeah, stay spooky, everyone. That's what I'm going to finish on.
Nice.
Goodbye, guys.
Bye.